Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of What Happened. Today we're diving into a story that has captivated the entire nation and left millions of people holding their breath. It's been 11 days since 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home in Arizona, and what started as a missing person case has become one of the most intense FBI investigations in recent memory. Now, you might recognize the last name Guthrie. That's because Nancy is the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the co-anchor of NBC's Today show. But this isn't just another celebrity story. This is a real family dealing with an unimaginable nightmare, and the twists and turns in this case are unlike anything we've seen before. So let's look back at how this all began and try to understand what exactly happened to Nancy Guthrie. Picture this. Saturday night, January 31st, 2026. Nancy Guthrie is having what seems like a perfectly normal evening. She's at her daughter Annie's house for dinner, probably talking about family, maybe planning for the upcoming week. Nancy lives alone in the Catalina foothills, a quiet community just north of Tucson, Arizona, the kind of place where neighbors know each other and crime is practically unheard of. At around 9:45 p.m., Nancy heads home to her house. It's a routine she's done countless times before. She's an independent 84-year-old who's been living on her own since her husband Charles died back in 1988. Her 3 children, Annie, Cameron, and Savannah, have always admired her strength and self-reliance. But here's where normal becomes anything but normal. The next morning, Sunday, February 1st, Nancy is supposed to attend virtual church services. She's made plans to watch with a friend, something she does regularly, but when she doesn't show up, her friend becomes concerned. Nancy is reliable. She doesn't just not show up to things. So the friend calls the family. That's when alarm bells start ringing. When family members can't reach Nancy and she's nowhere to be found, they call the Pima County Sheriff's Department around noon. What deputies discover when they arrive at Nancy's house immediately tells them this isn't a case of an elderly woman wandering off or having a medical emergency. The front door is open. Nancy's purse is inside the house. Her car is still in the garage. And here's the detail that sends chills down your spine. There's blood on the front porch. Nancy's blood. Sheriff Chris Nanos doesn't mince words. We believe she was taken out of the home against her will. But wait, it gets more complex. Investigators start piecing together a digital timeline that reads like something out of a techno thriller. Nancy wears a pacemaker that connects to her phone for monitoring. At 2:28 a.m. on that Sunday morning, the pacemaker app shows it disconnected from her phone. Around the same time at 2:12 a.m., motion sensors detect someone on her property. But here's the thing. The security cameras weren't recording because Nancy didn't have a service subscription, or so everyone thought. Fast forward 10 days to February 10th, and FBI Director Kash Patel drops a bombshell. Working with private sector partners, they've managed to recover what he calls previously inaccessible new images from Nancy's doorbell camera system. These aren't just any images. They show a masked, armed individual tampering with the camera at Nancy's front door on the morning she disappeared. The photos are haunting. A person in gloves, a ski mask, and a backpack, clearly armed with what appears to be a holstered gun. In the videos, you can see this person methodically covering the camera with their hands and what looks like part of a plant, trying to disable it. But technology has a way of preserving things even when people think they've erased them. Now, while all this investigation is happening, something else starts occurring that makes this case even stranger. 3 different news outlets, TMZ, KOLD, and K-Gun, start receiving what appear to be ransom notes. The first note demands $4 million in Bitcoin by February 5th. When that deadline passes, a second note ups the ante to $6 million and sets a new deadline for February 9th. But here's what's bizarre about these ransom notes. They're not being sent to the family directly. They're going to media outlets. That's not how kidnapping for ransom typically works. The notes contain specific details that only someone with knowledge of Nancy's house would know. They mention her Apple Watch, a floodlight at her property, things that give them an air of legitimacy. But the FBI is cautious. In an age where AI can create convincing fake videos and scams are increasingly sophisticated, how do you verify a ransom note is real? This is where the story becomes deeply human and heartbreaking. Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognizable faces on morning television, suddenly finds herself in every family's worst nightmare. She takes a leave of absence from the Today show, missing covering the Winter Olympics opening ceremony, to be with her family in Arizona. And then she does something that takes incredible courage. She makes direct appeals to whoever has her mother. In a series of Instagram videos with her siblings, Annie and Cameron, Savannah speaks directly to the camera. "We too have heard the reports about a ransom letter in the media," she says. "We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know without a doubt that she is alive and that you have her." The family's desperation is palpable. Cameron appears in one video saying, "We want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom." Then, in perhaps the most gut-wrenching moment, Savannah releases a video on February 7th where she says, "We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay." Think about that for a moment. One of the most public figures in America, someone whose every word is usually scripted and polished, is reduced to pleading with unknown kidnappers on social media for her mother's life. But here's where the case takes another turn that shows just how complex and dangerous these situations can be. While this is happening, authorities arrest someone in Los Angeles who's been sending fake messages to the family about Bitcoin. It turns out there are people trying to capitalize on this family's pain, sending fraudulent ransom demands to try to cash in on their desperation. FBI Special Agent Hyth Janka warns, "To those imposters who are trying to take advantage and profit from this situation, we will investigate and ensure you are held accountable for your actions." Meanwhile, the real investigation intensifies. The FBI posts a $50,000 reward for information leading to Nancy's recovery or the arrest of whoever took her. Federal agents are working around the clock, with personnel flying in from field offices across the country to establish what they call a 24-hour command post. And then, just yesterday, February 10th, things escalate dramatically. After releasing those security camera images, tips start flooding in. Within hours, authorities detain someone for questioning. A man is pulled over during a traffic stop south of Tucson near Rio Rico, Arizona, just 12 miles from the Mexican border. Federal agents execute a search warrant at his home. For a few hours, it looks like there might be a breakthrough. But then, early this morning, the man, who identifies himself only as Carlos, is released. Speaking to reporters outside his home, he says he was terrified by the experience. "Something I didn't do," he tells them. "I felt like I was being kidnapped, bro. They didn't tell me anything." Carlos says he's a delivery driver who was shocked when police pulled him over and that he doesn't even know who Nancy Guthrie is. So we're back to square one, but with more questions than ever. Here's what makes this case so unusual, according to experts who've worked kidnapping cases for decades. Former FBI agent Catherine Schweit points out that most kidnapping for ransom cases follow a predictable pattern. If you were going to abduct somebody for cash, why wouldn't you aggressively try to get the cash by communicating with the family right from the start so you could get your money and return the victim? The fact that the ransom notes are going to media outlets instead of the family directly is strange. The fact that there have been multiple deadlines that have passed without any real communication is strange. The fact that we're now 11 days in without any proof of life is extremely concerning. Some investigators are starting to wonder if this is really a kidnapping for ransom at all, or something else entirely. But here's what we do know. Bitcoin activity has been detected in the wallet address mentioned in the ransom notes. Someone transferred less than $300 to the account. Nowhere near the millions demanded, but it shows someone was paying attention to the threats. We also know that the person caught on Nancy's security camera clearly came prepared. Former FBI agent Brianna Fox analyzed the footage and noted that the person had some premeditation and came there intending to do something very terrible. The fact that they brought tools to disable the camera, that they were armed, that they knew enough to target the recording equipment, this wasn't a random crime of opportunity. What's particularly heartbreaking is Nancy's medical situation. She requires daily medication, and it's been 11 days since she's had access to it. Her family is desperate not just because they miss her, but because they know her health is at serious risk. The case has drawn attention from the highest levels of government. President Trump has personally called Savannah to offer federal resources and support. The entire nation is watching, hoping for a resolution that brings Nancy home safely. But as each day passes, that hope becomes more fragile. Right now, as we speak, the FBI and local authorities are continuing their investigation. They're following up on hundreds of tips that came in after releasing those security camera images. They're analyzing digital forensics, reviewing financial transactions, interviewing potential witnesses. The family continues to believe Nancy is alive. In her most recent Instagram post, Savannah said, "We are at an hour of desperation and we need your help, no matter where you are, even if you're far from Tucson. If you see anything, if you hear anything, if there's anything at all that seems strange to you, please report it to law enforcement." The investigation has revealed just how vulnerable we all are in our own homes and how quickly a normal life can be shattered. It's also shown the power of technology, both as a tool for criminals who can send anonymous ransom notes and manipulate digital communications, and as a resource for investigators who can recover data that seems lost forever. What happened to Nancy Guthrie has become more than just a missing person case. It's become a mirror reflecting our fears about safety, our reliance on technology, and our capacity for both evil and compassion. But let's talk about what this case reveals about modern kidnapping investigations. The technological aspects alone are fascinating and terrifying. We live in an era where security cameras are everywhere, where our medical devices are connected to the internet, where digital footprints can be recovered even when we think they've been erased. Yet, we also live in an era where artificial intelligence can create fake videos and voices so convincing that even experts struggle to tell them apart from reality. The FBI's ability to recover those security camera images from back-end systems shows how much digital evidence can persist even when criminals think they've covered their tracks. But it also highlights how vulnerable our connected devices make us. Nancy's pacemaker provided investigators with a precise timestamp of when something went wrong, but it also means that someone with the right knowledge could potentially track her medical information. The psychology of this case is equally compelling. Former FBI behavioral analysts who've studied the released footage note several key details about the suspect's behavior. The person appears to have studied the property in advance. They knew where the camera was located and came prepared to disable it. They brought specific tools and equipment. This suggests planning, not a random crime of opportunity. But there are also signs of amateur behavior. The person didn't realize that disabling the camera wouldn't necessarily delete all the data. They left physical evidence behind. They chose to send ransom notes to media outlets instead of establishing direct communication with the family, which makes the whole operation much more complicated and risky. This contradiction between planning and poor execution has led some experts to theorize that the perpetrator might be someone with a personal connection to Nancy, or the family someone who knew enough about her routine to target her specifically, but did not have the criminal expertise to pull off a sophisticated kidnapping. The masked figure in those security camera images remains unidentified. The ransom demands remain unverified. Nancy Guthrie remains missing. But what has not disappeared is the determination of law enforcement to find her and the love of a family that refuses to give up hope. As this case continues to unfold, it serves as a reminder that behind every news headline is a real family dealing with unimaginable pain. The Guthries are living every parent's, every child's worst nightmare. They're dealing with questions no one should have to face. Is she alive? Is she suffering? Will we ever see her again? For now, all we can do is hope that somewhere, somehow, Nancy Guthrie is holding on, and that the ongoing investigation will bring her home to the family that loves her. The search continues, the investigation continues, and the nation continues to hope for answers in a case that has more questions than solutions. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the mystery or the technology or even the celebrity connection. It's the very human story at its center. Nancy Guthrie isn't just a missing person statistic. She's a mother, a grandmother, a woman who raised 3 children largely on her own after her husband's death. She's someone who maintained her independence well into her 80s, someone who had routines and friendships and a life that mattered. Savannah Guthrie has spent years asking tough questions as a journalist, but now she finds herself on the other side of the story, pleading for answers rather than seeking them. The role reversal is profound and heartbreaking. She's gone from being someone who reports the news to someone who is the news, and not by choice. For law enforcement, this case represents both the best and worst of modern investigative capabilities. They have technological tools that previous generations of investigators could only dream of. But they also face challenges that are uniquely modern. deepfake ransom demands, the difficulty of verifying communications in an age of deepfakes, and the pressure of conducting an investigation under intense public scrutiny. That's where we stand today with the Nancy Guthrie case. If you have any information, no matter how small it might seem, the FBI is asking you to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Sometimes the smallest detail can be the one that breaks a case wide open. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.